all over, but I don't know if it
Well,
really
time is
sticks.
against us, Corey, and we only have 7 more minutes to go, and I want to get to the Madam President about the legislation. She mentioned that Barbados is operating under the Emergency Act, if that's the correct name. But there have been some oppositions raised about the legislation that has been implemented, Madam President, and we've even seen it gone to the law court. What's your take on the legislation, its implementation, and the ripple effect it's been having with people being arrested for breaking curfew or not following the protocols?
Thank you. There are really 2 layers that I want to raise awareness on. One is the structure of our emergency legislation and how it was changed last year. Now, we had an old act, 1939, and just by hearing that, you would know that it would have some inadequacies, the Emergency Powers Act. That was augmented in 2006 by the Emergency Management Act, which is the act that set up the DEM that I spoke of earlier and the role that it would play. And it gave greater bite and teeth to the emergency powers if we had any emergency arise. And I don't think anybody is disputing that this is an emergency situation. But what we had then in March of last year, before I get to that, both the 1939 Act and the 2006 Act allowed in an emergency situation for Parliament to basically truncate itself and have Cabinet make the decisions in that period of emergency only. But what happened last year is that an amendment was made to the 2006 Act for the Prime Minister alone, one person, to be making decisions in an emergency situation. The danger to democracy, of course, is obvious. It is also unnecessary in a situation where we're here holding a panel discussion via Zoom, and Cabinet has been sitting via Zoom. So there is no circumstance under which we can imagine that the Prime Minister cannot reach her Cabinet in order to make decisions. And we really should be having deliberations. And that is a very concerning feature, that we now have the possibility in our legislation of all decisions being made by one person, the Prime Minister. And we have to be very aware of that and be wary of it as well. The second issue, which to my mind is the larger issue, is the disparity that we are seeing coming through in relation to the weight of the law when it comes to breaches of protocols. I'm not going to get into it now because we are running short on time as to whether or not the directives are drafted so loosely in any event that everybody should be pleading not guilty. That is a whole other consideration. But what we have found is that we have had egregious breaches, such as a visitor testing positive and running away to the airport. We've had egregious breaches of parties being held, but we can't hear any details about the parties, but we could hear about the bus crawl. We have all of these breaches, and then we watch as there are different layers applied when it comes to the law. And it is very discouraging when you see, and for me, this is the example that stuck out the most. A man says to the court, look, I have no electricity. I have no running water. I simply was going a couple houses down by my aunt to get some mayonnaise to put with this tuna. And he is fined $1,000. There is no contemplation that a man who can't have basic amenities in his house will be able to pay the fine. We run the risk of criminalizing poverty in this country. And it really is, it is disturbing that we should reach that level. This is not to say that you are encouraging people to be breaching the law, and especially when it comes to the preservation of our health. But at the end of the day, we have to be cognizant of the people that we are dealing with. When a man comes to the court and he says, look, I was trying to find some food to put on my children's plates, there has to be that element of compassion. And I am not speaking about those who recklessly hold parties even though they know they're not supposed to. I am not speaking about those who choose to escape from quarantine or from isolation. I am speaking about the ordinary man whose struggle is simply not being heard. And then we hear that there are not two Barbaduses. But the experience says something completely different. We have to be very vigilant in society that we are not further disadvantaging our people. We have to be very careful that justice is tempered with mercy. And remember that, as the old people would say, today for you and tomorrow for me, right? There has to be that level of humanity that remains. And anytime that we are left with the impression that the law is being unevenly applied, we are going down a slippery slope where society is concerned. So we have to be mindful and raise awareness of these things. We have to be the ones who speak up on behalf of the disadvantaged. The ones who have no voice depend on us to speak for them. And we have to be very, very careful in society that we are not seen to be punishing people for being poor. I think that is coming through in a significant way with the application of fines. When a known billionaire can pay $6,000 in a fine, but a man who says, I can't even afford basic amenities in my house gets $1,000 fine, we know that we are dealing with inequalities in our justice system. And it is up to us to speak up and address them.
From Madam President, you have 30 seconds just to give us your last thoughts about the topic, the two sides of COVID in Barbados, and any other comments that you may want to make.
Thank you. I want to bring it all home and speak to what I believe is the overriding mantra of the Democratic Labour Party, and that is that we are more than an economy. We are a society. We were pilloried for this statement, but nothing has brought it into sharper relief than our COVID experience. We must be very, very clear that government has a duty to protect its citizens. And that is a duty that comes before revenue generation. If there is ever going to be a conflict between the two, life must win out. It is then for the people of Barbados, and definitely the Democratic Labour Party will give voice to this, to insist that government makes determinations and policy decisions around COVID that protect our society. Yes, we must earn a living, but we can do so in different ways. This is the time for innovation to come to the fore. This is the time to be thinking outside the box as to other ways to raise earnings for the country. But this is also the time to take very seriously the health of the country and to stop making shortcuts, to follow the guidance of the science. A little pain now for some benefit later on. We know that it can work because we did it. We locked down last year and came out on the other side better. But then we got reckless, to use Corey's word. And we started putting the wrong priorities in the forefront. And we need to get back to managing COVID. First, we must get a handle on what we have now. And then when we are facing the world again, to be unapologetic about our desire to protect our people and to man our borders properly. Those are the insistence of the Democratic Labour Party on behalf of the people of Barbados.